Hi friends, besties. We just wanted to drop in and leave you with a quick note about our audio in the 2 Kristen Modafferi episodes.
Yes, absolutely. If you are just now tuning in for part 1 or part 2 of Kristen Modafferi, you might notice after this brief disclaimer that the audio quality does in fact drop dramatically. And we were doing our best to try to bring you new types of content, visitors of the pod. We were so grateful to have my sister come and join us. However, we used a microphone that was not of the best quality and picked up many sounds beyond just that of our voices. And I happen to sound like I'm a good distance away from the microphone for most of the episode. And so I hope that you're able to find it at least palatable enough to complete part 1 and 2. However, if you can't, we totally get it. We're grateful that you're still here with us. All you have to do is make it through part 1 and 2 of Kristen Modafferi, and audio quality should resume at its normal caliber. And so we appreciate you. We're happy to have you, besties. And thank you for allowing us to tell you true crime stories.
We hope you enjoy and are able to listen to these 2, because it is a very important story that Hayden told. There are questions that are still unanswered, and we're just hoping that anybody who might have any information can help this family get some of those answers that they so desperately want. An end to the episode. Hi, I'm Cameron.
And I'm Hayden.
And I'm Miranda.
And this is
Until the End of Crime, Part 2.
As if part 1
it's not
wasn't.
Until the End of Crime Part 2.
It sure is today. Part 2 of Until the... Don't you tell me what this podcast is or isn't.
We've already established, don't tell him what to do. He
Don't
does not
start
listen.
doing all that jazz.
Kitties.
Tell me about murdered animals, Hayden. Tell me about them.
Oh, God. No murdered animals on this. You know, you always try to talk about murdered animals on the podcast, and I tell you repeatedly, it's in such poor taste, and you keep trying to do it.
I hold the unedited audio. I can expose you.
Yeah, that's a lot of exposure. What gets left on the cutting room floor is a lot.
I was just talking about the animal part, but there is
We've said
more.
a lot about a lot.
I know.
You know, you are such a skilled editor. I'm really genuinely grateful for you because I don't want to do editing. I appreciate you working through the trickery.
I can read between the lines, and I think when you say skilled, what you mean is willing, and that is the most important to you.
It is. It is. Because if it were up to me, I don't think we'd have a podcast that's published or listenable. It would get published, but it would just be raw dog footage.
Yeah.
The 4-hour recording sessions for an hour and a half episode.
All of our fan would be so disappointed.
Our what fan? Hi, Becca.
Rebecca. Did you see
I
the
heard shout
comment
out to
that she...
Becca a lot. Hi, Becca. Thanks for supporting.
I don't even know if she goes by Becca, does she?
I don't know why I decided to call her that just now.
Rebecca?
So, jumping back in to part 2. So, Cameron, my question for you,
Who's
or
being
Miranda.
noisy?
Probably me. So, Cameron, Miranda, what do you remember from last week's episode?
Gosh, it's been so long. I remember that Kristen was fresh on the scene in San Fran.
San Fran, Oakland.
Oakland. I know a podcaster from there. No is crazy. I parasocially know a podcaster from there. And she disappeared in her green JanSport backpack.
I was last seen with the blonde-headed lady.
No, she was last seen at an undisclosed ATM, Wells Fargo ATM.
But nobody
pulling out
knows which one.
an undisclosed amount of money, and undisclosed if she was there by herself or if the other chick was still with her.
And none of her 4 or 5 housemates knew she was missing.
I think, and I understand it, I think one of the saddest things about the first part of this was when you were talking about her family being like, how did they go for this long with her being missing and they didn't report it, they didn't call us. And unfortunately, I think the answer as cold as it's going to sound, is that her family cared if she went missing, and these broskies probably weren't used to. I would imagine that their previous roommate was also a dude in a similar situation as they were in, and not some turned 18 3 weeks ago when she moved in girl who was working 2 jobs and about to start college. But I remember also that the investigation, I think, started last week. Maybe. They've barely investigated this.
Yeah, you guys are so right. You held so much of the information from last week. I think, when we talk about Kristen Modafferi's case, the most important thing we talked about last week was the distance and time between her going missing and any report of her being missing, and then the gap of reporting her being missing and Oakland PD doing anything with that information of her being missing. And so we have a very delayed start. We're working against a time clock that's already run out, and the only leads we have aren't being sought out. So Oakland PD doesn't make efforts, or at least real efforts, to contact the woman she was seen with. They're not using any kind of information, like you said, about the ATM to try to further the case, at least publicly. And so, remember, we also have those dogs, the bloodhounds, that went searching to find the scent trail that just kind of evaporated into thin air as soon as they got to the coastal bluffs on the outskirts of the city. And so today we're picking back up in the beginning stages of the investigation, and we're going to start off with 2 critical pieces of evidence that authorities still aren't totally sure what to make of or what significance they hold. 2 pieces of evidence surfaced in the first weeks of the investigation that have stayed with the case ever since, and neither have ever been fully resolved. The first is a personal ad. When Bob and Debbie Modafferi went into Kristen's bedroom at 274 Jayne Avenue to collect her belongings, she had been there less than 4 weeks. All of her possessions still fit in the duffel and the camera bag she had flown west with. They found in a trash can in her room, and that's disputed, right? So whether or not they found it in a trash can or they just found it in the room, there's a level of discourse. But a copy of the San Francisco Bay Guardian, the alternative weekly that was San Francisco's primary venue for classifieds in '97, the newspaper had been folded open to the personal section, and a single ad had been circled in pen. The ad reads, in its most cited form, capital FRIENDS, female seeking friends to share activities, who enjoy music, photography, working out, walks, coffee, or simply the beach, exploring the Bay Area. Interested? Call me. If we read that again, we see that it describes music, photography, working out, exercise, walking, the beach, exploring the Bay Area, which was kind of the very definition of Kristen Modafferi's planned summer. The match is so close that for 28 years, investigators and the family have tried to determine whether Kristen placed the ad, or was the person being sought out by the ad, or had circled it because she was thinking about responding to it. And the Bay Guardian was of no help. The newspaper was contacted by the Oakland PD in the first few weeks of the investigation, but they had already purged its backlog of advertisement records for that week by the time the inquiry came in. There is no record of who placed the ad, no record of whether Kristen responded, and no record of whether anyone responded to her. The ad is one of the...
In the ad, there has to be a way to contact the person who placed the ad.
Fair.
So how are they not able to reverse engineer that?
I don't know. But they treat it like it's this glaring blind spot.
Yeah, there are blind spots, all right.
What a good question.
Also, I was expecting you to say, and must also have a JanSport backpack in green. 1 mesh pocket.
1.
Because pretty clear that this is how she and the blonde girl
met.
Would have linked up, yeah. I bet they were both victims. Also,
yeah, but nobody knows who this lady is, so she could be dead, the blonde.
Did you say you can hear my birds?
Yeah, I said say hello to your little birdie friend.
That bird is getting after it. So it is weird, but again, what it says is that copy of the San Francisco Bay Guardian literally didn't have contact information but call me. So it says that during the 1990s, personal ads like this typically utilized a blind proxy routing system managed by the publication. But because they had purged all of their records from the ad purchase, there was no record of who purchased that ad.
Would have been helpful if they had investigated this in the 90s instead of waiting until 2026. But again, here we are.
Well, again, they did make efforts, I think, weeks into the investigation. But then they found out that the Bay Guardian only keeps their records of who purchased for a week. And so they don't know who it is that placed it, which is really odd. That's a weird system.
It is a weird system if you have to... If you're having to use some sort of proxy through the ad, through the paper or whatever, it makes no sense that this ad, papers, right? I'm showing my age and how young I am because I forgot that papers are a weekly thing. Yeah. They're not just accessible forever.
Yeah, it says because those back-end records were destroyed, law enforcement was never able to trace the routing number back to a specific person.
Imagine if they hadn't waited until Monday. Fucking...
I almost just closed out this window and nearly shit myself. Okay. Thank God.
Okay, don't tell me.
Sorry, that was me that time.
I know, I can see. Don't tell me. I just feel like there's such a cognitive dissonance between, well, we're not going to investigate this. We're not going to look at this just yet. It hasn't been but a week since this has happened. And then when they start doing the investigation, 1 week later, they're like, shit, all the evidence gets thrown out after a week. Oh my gosh. It's...
To further what you're saying, they didn't... From what I understand, they didn't even attempt to reach the newspaper for like 3 weeks after. So there was a bigger time period than just a week. So even further to what you're saying, right? Like they just were not quick on the draw.
I suppose.
There's a little feet dragging. Well, that's not the only piece of evidence we have to contend with. The second piece is a photograph that surfaced months later by accident. One of Kristen's coworkers at Cafe Museo, a young woman named Joanna Sondheim, was at home sometime after the disappearance, flipping through a stack of personal photographs from earlier that summer. She noticed that one of the photos had Kristen in the background. The photograph had not been taken of Kristen, or with the awareness that Kristen was in the frame, she had simply been there behind the subject on a day that Sondheim photographed something else. Sondheim contacted Tim Hames, the private investigator to the Modaferri family that they had hired, and turned the photograph over. As far as anyone has been able to determine, it is the last photograph of Kristen Modafferi in existence, and the image has circulated on Dennis Mahan's FindKristen.com archive and the case materials ever since. Sondheim's discovery was not the product of investigation, simply an accident, and it's unclear, really, what this evidence is supposed to serve, but I know that it's become kind of a focal point. On July 10th, 1997, 17 days... What is it?
A picture.
A picture.
Of her was
just a picture. Yep.
She's in the background of a picture.
Yep.
This is riveting evidence. This is going to take us places. This is going to solve it. This picture was taken, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, before she went missing. This picture is not, it's irrelevant to the, it's just eerie when shit like that happens.
Yeah.
No, they were abducted by somebody driving along there. That was...
My favorite piece of evidence is about to come up and you're going to hate it.
It sounds accurate.
Jesus.
So on July 10th, 1997, 17 days after Kristen's disappearance... Is that 17 days? I'm so bad at that. So 17 days after Kristen disappeared... and approximately 10 days into the active Oakland PD investigation, a man called the assignment desk at KGO-TV, the ABC affiliate in San Francisco. Bill McGee was the... This is
the dude who inserted himself into the investigation. Great.
Bill McGee was the assignment manager who took the call. The caller had a very specific story to tell. He said he knew who had killed Kristen Modafferi. He said it was two women in what he described as a lesbian love triangle. And he said the body had been disposed of under a wooden bridge near Point Reyes National Seashore in Marin County. He gave names. He gave places.
And the body wasn't there.
He gave detail. McGee later told ABC 7 News that he went into a lot of detail about who they were, the names and the places again, and that he took that information to police. The names the caller had given were of 2 women who worked at a YMCA in San Francisco. When Oakland police interviewed...
Do you want me to tell you what happened with this guy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because these women clearly don't match the description of the woman seen walking with Kristen when she was leaving the one place where she was last seen leaving by her coworker. This guy hit on one of these women, but she's a lesbian, so she rebuffed his advances. And so now she is being wrapped up in this case because his ego was bruised because she would rather have sex with a woman than with him.
Close.
No, carry on. Carry on. Tell me more.
So, Oakland police interviewed these 2 women and found absolutely no evidence to tie them to each other. What he did find was that the 2 women worked at the same YMCA branch as another woman named Jill Lampo. He also learned that these 2 women had been involved in a workplace conflict with Lampo over what they described as performance issues. Both women independently said they suspected the caller to KGO was Lampo's boyfriend, a 36-year-old man named John Onuma, who lived in an apartment about a mile from the Crocker Galleria. Police pulled records, traced the call, and confirmed, it was Onuma. Onuma did not deny calling when approached, and when confronted, he told police that he had made the whole thing up. He said he had implicated the 2 YMCA co-workers because they were trying to get his girlfriend Jill Lampo fired, and he had wanted to retaliate. He said he never met Kristen Modafferi. He said he had no idea what happened to her. And he said the story about the wooden bridge near Point Reyes, the lesbian love triangle, all of those names and places, all of it was fabricated. He told police he just wanted to harm those 2 women he was angry at.
Fuck the missing women.
Yeah, fuck actually helping find this 18-year-old girl who's gone missing. Let's just do something to make these women's lives hell. Police searched Onuma's apartment. They found in his diary collection sizable amounts of blood. And that blood, listen, this is what they reported. The blood was then sent in for DNA analysis, and it came back as cat blood.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
You will forever. Forever.
Do you look for stories that involve animals?
Yes, he does. Yes.
Now, whose cat the blood came from and how it ended up in sizable amounts inside of Onuma's apartment was not publicly explained. Police also
What
sizable?
is a diary collection? What did you call it?
What's
a diary collection? You guys, that's just how it's described. I don't know what to tell you. Police also located in Onuma's apartment. Onuma. In Onuma's apartment, a diary belonging to Jill Lampo. Pages from the diary covering the period of late June 97, the days where Kristen vanished, have been torn out. Police also found that Onuma had a history of placing personal ads in the Bay Guardian, the same newspaper where Kristen's Circle ad had appeared, soliciting women.
His diary that he has written in, right, has the days torn out.
So it's actually his girlfriend's diary that the pages are torn out, but yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So again, police also found that he placed ads in that same paper, and he would use them to solicit women and then pressure them into having sex after meeting them. And that was kind of a known con that he ran. When Lampo was interviewed, she agreed to an on-camera interview years later with ABC 7 on the condition that her face not be shown. She said that on the afternoon of June 23rd, 97, she had been at the library. She produced on camera a library card, and asked whether she had ever met Kristen Modafferi. She said she had not. Asked whether she had an explanation for why pages had been torn from her diary during the period that Kristen disappeared. She said she did not. Police investigated the question of whether Lampo was the blonde woman seen with Kristen on the second floor of the Galleria. Lampo is a natural brunette. The Mystery Delver Case Wiki, summarizing what the investigation concluded, says that Lampo does not fit the physical description of the blonde woman seen walking with Kristen at the mall. And so we're kind of having these incredible coincidences line up in a way that I think it at least makes my eyebrows perk up, that I find disconcerting. But again, nothing that's more than circumstantial. Now, none of this produced a charge, and none of it realistically could. There was no body, no eyewitnesses, no other physical evidence connecting Onuma or Lampo to Kristen, and the case ended up sitting. Tim Haynes, the private investigator, told reporters around this time, "We have no victim, we have no witness, we don't have anything. She left us nothing to go on. I've looked at her bank records, social security number, everything. There's nothing to indicate that she is alive or dead." In May of 1998, almost a year after Kristen vanished, America's Most Wanted aired a segment on the case. John Walsh framed it as an unsolved disappearance.
Disappearance? Disappearance.
Disappearance. Walsh framed it as an unsolved disappearance. What the fuck is a disappearment?
It's your newfound word.
It's a flavor of gum.
What's your flavor?
Disappears the nasty in your mouth. The segment generated tips, but most of them led nowhere. A year later, on Saturday, May 22nd, 1999, America's Most Wanted re-aired an updated segment. This one was different. This one, by 1999, included on-camera interviews, with the women's faces obscured in silhouette. 3 women who said that John Onuma had attacked them in the years after Kristen's disappearance. One of the blah, 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 blah.
Disappearance.
And that's women with a Y, right?
Women. One of these women said on the broadcast, quote, "He hit me over the head and said, 'You know I'm going to have to kill you. I can't let you go.' Then he turned around and said, 'Now you know what happened to Kristen Modafferi.'" This is a verbatim quote from the America's Most Wanted broadcast, and this is still visible on the YouTube archive of the segment. The 1990...
Gonna party like
I had a
it's
question, though.
1999.
Dude, what the fuck is wrong with my ability to talk today?
Maybe too much white chocolate mocha.
Maybe that's it.
Never.
What was your question?
Yeah, so my question is why? Hold on, I have to relocate it in my brain. So we've got this girl, we've got him telling this girl essentially that he did something to Kristen, but you see that sometimes where there's an unsolved case and people will use that to intimidate other people. But what was the nature of the ads? I know that you said that he would place ads to lure women.
I don't know if he did it under a false guise.
But, like, these women that came forward, did they ever say, this is the type of ad that I responded to? It was, I thought that I was meeting up with a female and it was a male, or I thought that it was somebody who was interested in photography. I mean, did he reach out to people who put classifieds in the newspaper, or did he put classifieds in the newspaper and have people reach out to him? That is exactly what I thought. I knew it. This whole time.
Give me a second. I'm trying to look. So, again, what the research says, what the evidence says, is that there is no example of how he posted his ads, but he was the one who posted them and they were in the same publication. And that they led to not necessarily the solicitation of sex, but that after meeting them, it was pressure to have sex.
But these women came forward. He had attacked them. Were these not women who responded to his ads? Was he...
They did respond
just
to his
pressuring
ads.
some women and attacking?
Yeah. Whatever his ad was, it wasn't intimidating because these women were coerced into sexual actions after meeting.
So they had sex with this guy.
It seems at least some of them did, but I would also assume that maybe some of it would have been assault.
But did he post... Like, did they know they were going to meet him, or did they think they were going to meet another female?
It doesn't say that.
Swear to God. Why didn't they call me? Put me on the case.
Probably because you're still in elementary school.
I would have been 10 years old at this point. I was in intermediate school. Thank you very much.
So there is no official answer about what his ads read, how they were positioned, what they invited, or what they were soliciting. And so they just know that he ran ads and that women
no
responded.
follow-up questions.
No, I guess not.
Yeah, how can you follow up any questions with that?
So,
I mean,
there you go.
Okay, like at this point, I feel like the roommates did more than the investigators.
I'm telling you, the evidence in this case is so weird because some of it's not even hardly evidence. I don't know why it's important. I don't know why it became focal points. I don't understand why they followed up on some things and not on others. I also don't know if there's just an issue of reporting. Like, did this case just not get reported on thoroughly?
So for her family to be as outspoken and to have traveled to San Francisco as often as they have and to have really tried to push the narrative, I would think, into the public eye, it feels like it's just not been receptive. Like it hasn't, you said that it's been covered very minimally. And I mean, in this day and age, with how ubiquitous true crime is, you would think that somebody would have picked up on it by now, but maybe they would have found that there's no evidence that a crime happened and that it's really difficult to, Disappeared or other shows, but there's just...
Disappeared actually wrote about this case, and that's where the information about the ads comes from.
Great.
Sorry, I wanted to share that because I was like, that's exactly where the information came from.
If you want to know how this has come all the way back full circle, the podcaster that I mentioned earlier that's from Oakland got into podcasting. The podcast was called Obsessed with Disappeared, and they recapped every single episode of Disappeared. That's how we've come full circle in this moment. You're welcome. No further questions, please.
Thank you so much. That was important world building.
Yeah, well, I'm at least explaining how things are connected here, unlike the investigators in this fucking case.
Now you hold on a minute.
Tell me you're going to give us something good.
Because in that 1999 America's Most Wanted segment, Oakland Police Sergeant John Bradley said on camera, "Of Onuma, he is connected, and we need to nail down his connection to this case."
And then they did? Because they asked follow-up questions?
The language of the investigation has still not been able to charge someone, but hasn't necessarily let go of them either. The 1999 broadcast ended up airing in Hawaii, and Onuma at that point was living in Oahu. He had relocated to his native Hawaii in 1999, and the America's Most Wanted broadcast triggered tips from people in Hawaii who recognized him. Some of these tips came from women who said that Onuma had bragged to them that he had killed Kristen Modafferi. The North Carolina ABC affiliate WRAL reported in a May 24th, 1999 piece that the three women told investigators that the man named John Onuma held them hostage and tortured them. They also said that Onuma bragged he had killed Kristen Modafferi.
How was this guy not in jail for what he's done to these women, first of all, right? Because he sexually assaulted the women, kind of kidnapped the women, tells the women that he's killed another woman. Where's the woman that he was living with? Whose page
Lampo? I don't know. There's not really a lot about Lampo out there anymore. I know that she was also kind of...
fucked up?
No, they essentially declared her as no longer being a person of interest.
Did they declare him as a person not being of interest?
You know, I think that I'm going to tell you in just a little bit.
Am I going to be frustrated and want to eat my egg roll now?
Probably.
Oh my God.
Can confirm.
Oakland police called Onuma in Hawaii after the 99 broadcast, and they asked him to come to California to speak with them. And again, according to WRAL, Onuma told them that he wanted to come, but that he just couldn't afford the airline ticket. He told them he could help them solve the case, though. Debbie Modafferi on camera with WRAL is quoted as saying he also told police that he could help them solve the case. Bob Modafferi said the bottom line is he knows what happened. We want someone to grill him and say, "What do you know?" Onuma did not come to California. He has, in 28 years, never spoken with Oakland police in person about the disappearance of Kristen Modafferi. Around 2002, approximately 5 years after Kristen vanished and 3 years after the AMW rebroadcast, Onuma was living alone in a roughly $1.4 million seaside residence in Kanohi, Hawaii. a town on the windward eastern side of Oahu. He had no apparent employment. He was paying to live in a $1.4 million oceanfront home.
But he couldn't afford to fly somewhere?
Is, in 28 years of subsequent reporting on this case, never adequately explained. Eventually, the homeowner learned, through what Dennis Mahan had described as a tip about Unoma's A&W connection, who their tenant was, and they did end up evicting him. About a month after that eviction, the property manager went into the house to clean it. And in the attic, hidden beneath the eaves, was a briefcase. The property manager opened the briefcase, and inside were newspaper articles about the disappearance of Kristen Modafferi. This is according to Dennis Mahan's November 1st, 2017 podcast episode titled Kristen Modafferi, Onuma, and the Briefcase, which is the primary source for the briefcase find. The Mahan archive frames the briefcase as confirmation of what Onuma had denied for years, that he had any interest or knowledge in Kristen's case beyond his July 1997 call to KGO. A man who has insisted for 2 decades that he never met Kristen, has no idea what happened to her, and at the time of his 2002 eviction, keeping a briefcase of newspaper clippings about her disappearance hidden in an attic. Any thoughts?
He fucking did it.
Yeah.
I mean,
only the thoughts that you have
do too. They like to keep things to remind them of what they've done, or keepsakes, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. He's got a briefcase full of clippings from this woman, and has also bragged to people about her. I mean, all fingers point at this guy.
The thoughts that we have are the ones that you have led us directly to.
Mm-hmm. It's your fault, but you still don't know who fucking did it.
It's also worth noting that the property owner didn't just go searching while cleaning. I kind of misrepresented that. He had called...
He was working on behalf of the police.
No. He had called and said, oh, hey, I forgot something up in the attic. Can I please come back and retrieve it? And she said, absolutely not. You're not coming back into this home. Then she went and got it, opened it up, and said, oh shit, it's newspaper clippings of Kristen Modafferi's case. And so that's kind of how that part went down.
So did she turn it into the cops?
It was handed over to law enforcement. The briefcase was
where?
The
attic? Yeah.
Yes. The briefcase was turned over to law enforcement. Now, whether it produced any kind of forensic evidence has never been publicly disclosed, but no charges resulted.
What forensic evidence would there be?
I don't know. I don't know. They've never said publicly if anything came from that briefcase and those clippings. I don't know. Maybe he did use them as a trophy and masturbated psychosexual while he was looking through them. I don't know.
Right, but there's no body to connect anything to. There's no body from which to get evidence to connect anybody to. So at this point, without a confession or without something more substantial, we can sit here, we can say that it was probably him, allegedly, in our opinion, but we can't even say that definitively on the record. So it is our opinion, as previously stated, that he done it.
I want to see how this affects your opinion.
Oh, dear Jesus, God. Hayden.
Fucking motherfucker.
In 2012, 15 years after Kristen's disappearance, Dennis Mahan was contacted by an uncle of Jill Lampo, that woman you all asked me about earlier. The uncle told Mahan that Lampo had said to him, and the framing in Mahan and his archive is that she said it in the context of unburdening herself, that she had been involved in helping a controlling man kidnap and murder a woman in San Francisco, and that she had been suffering significant guilt over it. The location, the timing, the description of the male coercer all map onto Onuma. The Lampo uncle disclosure is single-sourced, came to man as hearsay of hearsay, and would never on its own constitute admissible evidence. Mann shared the disclosure on Web Sleuths in his accounting of the case. He has stated explicitly on the same thread that his read of the evidence is, quote, I still think the answer lies with Lampo and Onuma, but they had nothing to do with 274 Jayne Avenue. So that, again, was the home of Kristen where she was staying with those roommates. That is a precise position, and it's one worth discussing. Mann believes Onuma and Lampo are responsible for what happened to Kristen, and he believes, separately and based on different evidence, that something significant happened in the basement of 278 Jayne Avenue. Now, that was not the home she lived in. That was the home next door. He does not believe that the two propositions contradict each other. His framework is that Onuma directed Lampo to bring Kristen to a location physically near where Lampo or Onuma had access. Whatever happened then happened there. The Onuma-Lampo theory and the Jayne Avenue physical evidence theory, in Mann's view, are not competing explanations. They are the same explanation told from two ends.
What?
I know. Hold on.
She was, what you have essentially just said is she was killed in the basement of the home next door to the place that she lived in.
Correct.
Is that where they lived?
No, that was a halfway house at the time. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if I super understand what Mann is saying here, but yes.
No, there is no yes, but no, if anything.
I'm just bringing you what he has said. After Cameron's reaction to what Mann said, I was like, did I get that right? And I think I did actually misread it. He does not think 278 has anything to do with it. My bad.
No.
I think where I fucked up is I put had nothing to do with 274, and I think that's still right, but I think I should have said 278 too. Also, I think I got him a little confused with Mark Deservine because they did have two private investigators working, and I think I just assumed that Mann was a private investigator. He's a citizen investigator. He heard about the case in the 90s and was like, I've got to help. Correction to episode part 1. Dennis Mann is not a private investigator, but a civilian investigator. I still think the answer lies with Lampo and Onuma, but they had nothing to do with 274 Jayne Avenue. That is a precise position, and it's one worth dwelling on. Mann believes that Onuma and Lampo are responsible for what happened to Kristen, and in the past there have been conversations around 278 Jayne Avenue, which, as Mann states, is actually a halfway home for people of various counties in the area. Despite past rumors, there is no real connection between this case and 278 Jayne Avenue. His framework for what he believes happens is that Onuma directed Lampo to bring Kristen to a location physically near where Lampo and Onuma had access, and whatever happened then happened there. The Onuma-Lampo theory, in Mann's view, is the best that he has. Now, whether or not we accept Mann's theory, totally beyond me. There is no corroborating reporting about this confession from the uncle. It's simply something that Mann has put forward, but compelling nonetheless. There's also a smaller, less famous element of this case that kind of deserves its own attention. It complicates the standard Onuma narrative in a way that most retellings glide over. When Oakland PD investigated Jill Lampo in 97 and 98, they were investigating her partly because Onuma's false KGO tip that had pulled her into the case, and partly because she had connections to Kristen's workplace. The connections went like this. Kristen worked at Spinelli's Coffee and the Crocker Galleria. One of Kristen's co-workers at Spinelli's was a young man named Kelly Kell Stratham, who had been at the coffee shop for some time before Kristen was hired. Stratham was friends with another man named Matthew Luke, an ex-boyfriend of Jill Lampo. Within roughly a month after Kristen vanished, Stratham recommended Luke for the job at Spinelli's, and Spinelli's hired him. Luke went to work in the same coffee shop that the missing 18-year-old had worked in less than 5 weeks earlier. Now, Mann has reported in his FindKristen.com archive that among all the Spinelli's employees Oakland police interviewed, Luke was the one whose demeanor stood out as evasive. Only one person acted odd when questioned about Kristen, and that was Matthew Luke, Mann writes. To this day, we still don't know why. There are also two specific details about Luke that elevate this from coincidence into a tighter pattern, and the first is the phone call Mann himself placed to Luke in 98 about a year after Kristen disappeared. Mann called to ask whether Luke could help him reach Kel Stratham, the co-worker who had recommended him. By Mann's account, Luke was polite at the start of the call, receptive, willing to talk, right up until Mann mentioned the name Kristen Modafferi. At that moment, Mann writes, Luke did a, quote, 180 and became very hostile and told me never to call him again and abruptly hung up. The second detail is physical. When Oakland police searched the apartment of John Onuma and Joe Lampo in 97 in connection to the false KGO tip, they recovered an address book belonging to the couple, and inside that address book with contact information was the name Matthew Luke. The man who reacted with sudden hostility when a private investigator mentioned Kristen's name was the same man whose name was already in John Onuma's address book before Kristen had disappeared. Now again, this could be pure coincidence. There is not a lot of corroborating evidence for what Mann has shared in some of these instances. The network then, by way of degrees of separation, Jill Lampo dated John Onuma. Jill Lampo had previously dated Matthew Luke. Matthew Luke was friends with Kel Stratham, and Kel Stratham worked at Spinelli's alongside Kristen Modafferi. After Kristen disappeared, Stratham brought Luke into the same workplace. 2 months after Kristen vanished, Onuma's ex-girlfriend's ex-boyfriend was making coffee at the spot where Kristen had been working. Mann's investigative thesis, repeated across more than 2 decades, is that the social distance between Kristen Modafferi and John Onuma in the late June of 97 is much smaller than the false tip to KGO narrative implies. The FBI, Mann notes, has a working statistic that 96% of women who meet with foul play knew their assailant in some capacity. Kristen had been in the Bay Area for 23 days. By Mann's estimate, she had directly encountered no more than 50 people in that time. Housemates, co-workers, neighbors, occasional acquaintances, the strangers at the dance class in the museum. If you accept the statistic, the answer is among those 50 people. Mann's reading of the case has been, from the beginning, the answer is in that network. The Onuma Lampo branch is where he has spent most of his time. This case also takes kind of an unexpected left turn in what I would call the Durst examination.
What is the Durst examination? Is that a character we're about to meet?
Yes.
Okay.
In March of 2015, the wealthy New York real estate heir Robert Durst was arrested at a New Orleans hotel in connection.
I was gonna say, is this Robert Durst? Fucking murdering ass.
At a New Orleans hotel in connection with the December 2000 murder of his close friend, the journalist Susan Berman, in Beverly Hills. The arrest came in the wake of HBO's documentary series The Jinx, which had aired its final episode that month. In the wake of the arrest, the FBI quietly put out a request to local law enforcement agencies in places where Durst had been documented as living or traveling: Vermont, upstate New York, the San Francisco Bay, and Southern California, asking those agencies to revisit unresolved missing person cases that overlapped with Durst's geography. The OPD was one of the recipients of that request. And on March 18th, 2015, OPD released a statement, quote, "The Oakland Police Department conducted an investigation with the assistance of the Federal Bureau of Investigation regarding the 1997 disappearance of Kristen Modafferi. The investigation was open and active for several years. At this time, we do not have any evidence that indicates Robert Durst was involved in her disappearance." The statement is precise in a way that has been somewhat lost in subsequent coverage. OPD did not say Durst was cleared. OPD said they had not found evidence linking him, and these are different statements. The Modafferi case is the weakest of the Durst geographic coincidence connections that surfaced in the 2015 sweep for one specific reason. Durst documented California presence in 97 was in Humboldt County, where he kept an office in Eureka and as a residence in Trinidad, both about 270 miles north of San Francisco. There's no documented evidence placing Durst in San Francisco on the day that Kristen vanished. There is, however, a separate case that connects more directly. On November 25th, 97, 5 months and 2 days after Kristen's disappearance, a 16-year-old girl named Karen Mitchell was last seen on Broadway Street in Eureka, California, walking toward what witnesses said was a stopped blue car driven by a Caucasian male in his 60s or 70s. Mitchell has never been found. A witness sketch of the man at the wheel of the car resembles Robert Durst. Author and investigative journalist Matt Birkbeck, in his 2015 book, A Deadly Secret, reported that credit card records placed Durst in Eureka on November 25th, 97, the day Karen Mitchell vanished. Mitchell had volunteered at a homeless shelter in Eureka that Durst frequented. Durst, who had become a documented practice of dressing in women's clothing during this period, had visited a shoe store at the Bayshore Mall owned by Karen Mitchell's aunt. Mitchell had been at her aunt's shop earlier on the day she vanished. Eureka Police Captain Patrick O'Neill, asked in 2021 about the Durst connection to the Mitchell case, told a reporter, "At this time, we have not found any credible link between Mitchell's disappearance and Mr. Durst. However, until Karen is located, we will not rule out any possibility. The Mitchell case, like the Modafferi case, remains open." The reason that Durst surfaces in the Modafferi story is that for a brief window in March of 2015, before OPD's statement, online sleuthing community speculated that the unidentified blonde woman seen with Kristen at the Crocker Galleria could have been Durst himself. I know. The speculation rested on 3 points. 1, Durst documented. Is cross-dressing a bad thing to say?
I don't know. I don't think so, but you could say something like dressing in
Geesh?
in full drag, high drag.
Dressing in
no, you
women's
could
clothing
say
and wigs.
Yeah, you could say that, or dressing in what wouldn't be considered to match his gender.
So, because Durst had been known to partake in some form of drag, some form of dressing and the opposite gender's clothing, the geographic coincidence of being in California in 97, and this kind of suggestive overlap with Karen Mitchell in Eureka is what people have this kind of theory still going. Now, again, no real documented evidence connecting Durst to Modafferi. And again, he was convicted of Susan Berman's murder on September 17th, 2021, and was sentenced to life without parole on October 14th, 2021, then charged with the murder of his first wife, Kathleen McCormick Durst, on October 22nd, 2021, and died at the California Healthcare Facility in Stockton, January 10th, 2022, at age 78.
I swear he was apprehended in Texas.
His Berman conviction was automatically vacated on appeal due to his death under the legal doctrine of abatement ab initio. Now, what this means for the Modafferi case is that Durst was, by the end of 2022, no longer available to be questioned about anything. And whatever he could have maybe have known about any of these missing cases like Karen Mitchell or Kristen Modafferi, or even another one, Lynn Schultz, he carried with him. And so, while it was a popular theory for some time, it's been mostly debunked and discredited.
Galveston.
Is that where?
He went into hiding and moved to Galveston, Texas, disguising himself as a mute woman to avoid police inquiries.
Honestly, work. A mute woman. Was he passing? I say passing. I feel like that's also like bad, but was he perceived to be a woman?
I think the word you're looking for is clocked.
Was he unclockable?
Nobody clocked.
Not a soul can clock?
She was unclocked. You know, it didn't actually get into whether or not he was. I imagine the mute woman people don't tend to look at that much because it would be considered rude, right?
That's true.
Also, if she spoke, I think the cover would be blown. Oh, Bobby Durst. Did not expect him to come up today.
And there he is, just for you.
There she is, for me.
And we have followed every twist and turn that has been thrown into this case over the last 3 decades. And so we are now in the final stretch where we're going to talk about some different theories, some different elements of the case, some evidence that is maybe a little more structurally sound than just reporting from one man, and ultimately you'll be left to decide what you think has occurred. In June of 2015, 18 years after Kristen disappeared, a retired Mammoth Lakes police sergeant named Paul Dostie drove down to Oakland with his black Labrador Buster. Dosti had spent 30 years in law enforcement before retiring from Mammoth Lakes PD in 2009. The last stretch of his career as a narcotics task force detective sergeant, he began training Buster in human remains detection in 2007. And over the next 8 years working with forensic anthropologist Dr. Arpad Voss at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Dosti and Buster developed a working method. Buster alerts on a spot, Dosti collects a soil sample, and the sample goes to Voss for gas chromatography, mass spectrometry.
Could you have picked harder words to say today?
It's 30 minutes of content, but an hour for him to get through the pronunciations, Miranda.
God.
Gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, analysis.
And Inspector Gadget.
Stupid.
Sorry, we're delirious. It's been 6 hours since we started.
Give me a fucking drink already. Let's fucking get cracking.
Gas.
I want to know what happens to this woman.
Well,
oh,
you're gonna need a drink.
We're not gonna know.
Gonna need a drink.
You're not gonna find out what happened to her.
We know what happened.
She went missing.
My money's still on briefcase, boy.
Yeah, absolutely, briefcase boy.
So, the sample goes to Vass for gas chromatography, mass spectrometry analysis of the volatile compounds present. By 2014, the Associated Press, NBC's, and Fox News had all profiled the pair, reporting that Buster's alerts had aided in the recovery of remains of approximately 200 people across his career. Buster's most extensively documented work was on the Pacific island of Tarawa sounds right. Tarawa, with the prisoner of war MIA organization History Flight, where he helped locate the remains of U.S. Marines killed in the 1943 battle, including prominently Medal of Honor recipient First Lieutenant Alexander Sandy Bonnyman Jr. He had also worked the Manson family's Barker Ranch in 2008, where he alerted on multiple spots. The dig that followed produced no remains. And in June and August of 2014, he had alerted twice at the fence line of the property owned by Susan Flores in Arroyo Grande, California, in connection with the 1996 disappearance of Cal Poly student Kristen Smart. Did I cover that case?
No, you listened to the podcast that covered that case.
Oh, that podcast was so good. So
loved
good.
It.
Did you listen to it?
What's it called?
I can't remember.
Well, that's helpful.
Wow, I thought it was amazing, and I don't even know. I can't remember what it's called.
Shout out to that one podcast. We don't know the name of it, but
you.
Go check it out. Is it in your own backyard?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I got excited. Yes, that's what it's called.
Yeah, my things got real loud.
Yeah.
I got real loud.
I do think I listened to that.
So good. The San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office at the time did not act on alerts. In April of 2021, Susan Flores' son, Paul Flores, was arrested for Kristen Smart's murder. In October of 2022, he was convicted. The alerts set the sheriff's office had set aside in 2014 had pointed at the right family. I want you to hold that in mind as we get to what happened in Oakland. On June 25th, 2015, Dosti and Buster arrived at 274 Jayne Avenue. Buster alerted at a drainage pipe on the downhill side of the home. He alerted at vents leading into the basement. He alerted in the basement itself. Dosti told ABC 7 News that day, "There is human decomposition present here, 100%. He collected soil samples for Vass to analyze. Oakland police were called and responded to the scene. Under recommendation from Dosti, Oakland PD brought in specialists from Chico State who used ground-penetrating radar inside the basement, identified an area of interest, and conducted a dig. However, this dig produced nothing. Officer Roger Haley, the case detective who had inherited the Modaferri, oh my god.
Yeah, just use your hand when you want to say the name.
Who had inherited the Modaferri. I feel like I'm doing Italian face right now.
Are you not Italian?
No, I don't think so.
My grandmother was half Italian.
It suits you. Pat Mahaney noted to ABC7 that the basement's dense clay soil would have made burial there exceedingly difficult. Bob Modafferi told ABC7 News, "If they're able to come up with the same conclusions as Dr. Vass, I see no reason why this shouldn't be opened as a homicide case." Joan Petruski, the Modafferi's family's Charlotte neighbor and the founder of the Kristen Foundation, told WBTV, "This is our time to get this done. 18 years is a long time, and we need to bring her home." And again, this was back in 2015. She had a feeling, she said on camera, that 2015 was going to be the year. And it was not. Buster died on February 27th, 2016 of a sudden heart attack while playing with a rubber bone outside of Dosty's cabin. He was 12 years old. So, Dr. R. Padvos, the forensic anthropologist, by training with a doctorate in anthropology from the University of Tennessee and master's in forensic science from Virginia Commonwealth University, was the man responsible for researching the samples. He spent 23 years as a research scientist in the Life Science Division of Oak Ridge National Laboratory, the largest national laboratory in the Department of Energy system, ending in September of 2012. During that time, he authored more than 60 peer-reviewed publications and was named on 17 patents. His foundational research, conducted at the University of Tennessee's Anthropological Research Facility, better known as the Body Farm, involved measuring the volatile organic compounds emitted by human bodies at various stages of decomposition, building over a 6-year period a database of decomposition signatures from hundreds of human subjects. The database is the basis for a handheld device he co-invented, the lightweight analyzer for buried remains and decomposition odor recognition. The acronym is Labrador. The device, licensed in 2012 to Agile Technologies of Knoxville, uses metal oxide sensors to detect the specific volatile compounds associated with human decomposition. It received its patent in July of 2018. Vass has a complicated reputation, and it's kind of essential to understand why the Oakland Police Department responded to the 2017 Modafferi findings the way they did. The first was the Casey Anthony trial of 2011. Vass testified for the prosecution that air samples taken from the trunk of Casey Anthony's car revealed high levels of compounds consistent with human decomposition, and the defense engaged its own expert who challenged Vass's methodology in detail, arguing that the compounds Vass identified could plausibly have been emitted by ordinary trunk contents, like food wrappers or cleaning supplies or other organic material.
With a bag of trash that was left back there for a while.
Yes. And that Vass's testimony, quote, wasn't backed up by scientific evidence. Vass has himself said that the Casey Anthony trial effectively ended his Oak Ridge career. He left the lab in September of 2012, the year after the trial concluded. The second thing happened in 2022, 5 years after the Modafferi findings, when the journalist Renee Ebersole published a long investigation in the Marshall Project in partnership with Mother Jones into Vass's work as an instructor at the National Forensics Academy in Oak Ridge. Ebersole observed Vass training active-duty law enforcement officers in clandestine grave detection. During the training, students asked Vass about the using of dowsing rods, the bent metal rods traditionally associated with water witching, and the location of underground anomalies, a practice without any accepted scientific basis. Vass's on-record response to Ebersole, as published in the investigation, was, quote, "I use them on everything." He defended the practice in subsequent public statements posted to his Forensic Recovery Services website as a legitimate forensic methodology. Eric Bartlink, the former president of the American Board of Forensic Anthropology, told Mother Jones for the same investigation that Vass's services are not, quote, "scientifically valid." That is the Arpad Voss, who in February of 2017 traveled to Oakland with Paul Dostie and ran additional sampling at the Jayne Avenue properties. The 2017 findings, as Vass communicated them to Joan Petruski at the Kristen Foundation, and as Petruski then forwarded to the Modaferri family and to Oakland police, were these. Working with Paul Dostie, Vass used his proprietary device to scan the Jayne Avenue properties and pinpointed an area at the base of porch steps between 274 Jayne Avenue and the neighboring house at 278 Jayne Avenue. The signature on Voss and Dostie's account was consistent with human blood. Dostie's framing to ABC7, it is human blood, but we don't get an indication of a burial. It's more of a crime scene. He had been able to develop a partial... I'm so sick of this.
Partial.
A partial DNA profile from those signatures. The partial...
It had nothing to do with nails.
I don't know why. The partial DNA profile, run against DNA samples Bob and Debbie Modafferi provided, returned what Vass and Dostie told the family was a match to their daughter's parental DNA. A partial parental DNA match is not conclusive identification. It is, at a minimum, consistent with the hypothesis that the biological material between the two porches came from a child of Bob and Debbie Modafferi. Bob and Debbie have 4 daughters. Of these 4, only Kristen has ever been physically present in Oakland, California, and only Kristen is missing. Vass's proposed next step, communicated through ABC7, was straightforward. All Oakland PD needs to do is bring their own dogs out to that site and see what happens. I'm quite sure that Paul also told Oakland PD how to look for human-specific VOCs and collected soil samples. All you need is a GCMS, which every university or crime lab in the world have. The procedure is very straightforward. In a separate set of remarks on the Kristen Smart case of 2016, before he came back to the Modafferi case, Vass had described essentially the same proposed protocol. All you need to do is drill a hole down to the concrete, down to the ground below, and plant it and take a soil sample. It's hardly any cost, it's very simple to do, and it's relatively non-destructive. His position was that he was asking the police to do a one-day university lab project accessible to any competent forensic chemist with access to a gas chromatograph.
Is it just me, or does this sound like one of those things that somebody gets really excited? They're like, look at this discovery that I made, look at this advancement that I made, but in actuality, it will eventually be proven to be junk science. And
it's kind of
really,
like
it's just something. They're using the hope of this family to propel this thing forward that they think is something, but it isn't actually something. Also, 18 years later, and you're finding samples of what you have decided is not hers conclusively, but not hers conclusively. It matches her parents. It feels like this is something where it's this combination of the person who discovered this has so much hope that they have discovered something that can do something wonderful. And they're taking this family who has this hope that they're going to get answers about what happened to their daughter almost 20 years prior. They feel like 2015 is the year that they are going to find out about this. And then it's like these two hopes are like fueling the whole thing and propelling it forward. But in actuality, it's nothing substantial, nothing significant.
It does kind of turn out to be a big nothing burger. And I think you're right when you say that, I mean, Voss has a vested interest in this technology working, right? He's a part of 18 patents. And he does. It's a really kind of ugly form of manipulation. I don't think it's necessarily intentional. I think that we can just be really hopeful that something will work. And we think it might work in this instance. But ultimately, like you said, it doesn't really amount to anything.
I don't think is it manipulative? Sure. But I think he's also manipulating himself into believing that there's, right. It's certainly not intentional or malicious.
Ultimately, Oakland Police Department releases a statement that At this time, the information we need from Dr. Voss to collect samples for his human decomposition tested has not been forwarded to the department. Additionally, no information regarding the more recent blood testing conducted on the porch has been disclosed to the department. And Roger Haley, the case detective who inherited the Modaferri file from Pat Mahaney, framed this in courtroom admissibility terms, which is that it just wouldn't hold up. It wasn't something that was viable in terms of court proceedings. And are you familiar with the Dober standard? Or I believe is the Dober standard?
No.
So it just says that for evidence to be admissible in federal court and in the substantial majority of state courts that have adopted Dober, that the methodology underlying evidence must be A, testable, B, have been subject to peer review.
I am.
C,
I've just never heard it pronounced that way. I don't
is
know
it
that I've ever
Daubert?
heard it pronounced. In my mind, I've only ever read it, I think, and I said Dauber.
I don't know why I'm trying to make it Dober, but Daubert, Dober.
It's that, and then it's Fry. Like, those are the two that, yeah. Okay.
And then it also has to have a known or estimable error rate and must be generally accepted within the relevant scientific community.
Mm-hmm.
And the steps for the partial DNA profile don't meet that litmus test.
Oh, shit.
The patent for the Labrador device doesn't really meet that test. It was still pending. And so it just wasn't enough for it to mean anything. It couldn't be independently replicated or validated because any subsequent prosecution would be vulnerable to that Dober challenge. So Voss again has tried to have a counter argument, essentially saying, hey, it's not that complicated. But again, they're not moving forward with that. Okay, you guys, we're coming up on the end. I have a couple of theories I'm going to float to you, and then we're going to wrap up. So, this case has sat open for 28 years, not a single confirmed account of what happened, and theories still abound. Theory
almost
1...
29.
Yeah.
Next month.
Theory 1 is Onuma and Lampo. The version of this theory most fully developed by Dennis Mann, the civilian investigator who has worked the case since shortly after Kristen vanished, holds that Jill Lampo, acting under the direction of her then-boyfriend John Onuma, made contact with Kristen on or around June 23rd, 1997. The mechanism by which contact was made is unspecified, but may involve the Bay Guardian personal ad which was found circled in Kristen's room. Lampo, brunette but apparently capable of appearing other ways depending on the description, may or may not have been the unidentified woman on the Galleria's second floor. Now, I will tell you the official police investigation concluded that Lampo did not match that description. Kristen was brought to a location where Onuma had access. Kristen was killed. The body was disposed of somewhere off of Marin County Bridge. Mann's personal best guess is the area Onuma had described in his July 10th, 1997, false KGO tip, which Mann reads as a tell. A man fabricating a story does not normally embed the truth about the disposal location while lying about the perpetrators, unless he is partly trying to confess. The evidence for is Onuma's call to KGO with detail that has never been adequately explained, the weird appearance of cat blood among this diary collection, his history of placing personal ads, the torn pages from Lampo's diary covering that period of time, the 1999 AMW segment in which three women in silhouette said Onuma had bragged he killed Kristen, the 1999 Hawaii reporting in which Onuma told Oakland police he could help them solve the case while simultaneously failing to actually come, the 2002 Hawaii eviction in which the briefcase of newspaper clippings about Kristen Modafferi was found hidden in the attic of his former residence, the 2012 disclosure through Mann from Lampo's uncle that Lampo had told him she had helped a controlling man kidnap and murder a woman in San Francisco and was suffering guilt over it. Now, there is evidence against this theory. First off, the Oakland PD investigation cleared Lampo as the Galleria blonde based on physical description. The cat blood was, by DNA analysis, cat blood. The 2012 disclosure is hearsay of hearsay, single source through Mann, and would not be admissible. The briefcase contents have never been forensically linked to Kristen, which again, how could they? And then 28 years of OPD investigation has not produced a single chargeable case against Onuma or Lampo. Now, another theory still persists.
No, let's talk about theory 1.
Okay.
My biggest issue with theory 1 is that in part 1 of this, I said it was the guy who inserted himself into the investigation, and you said no, essentially. But theory 1 is where I'm at. So explain yourself.
Listen, I don't want to give away right at the start what's going to happen.
But you did. You told us about the guy who inserted himself into the investigation with an awkward pause after inserted or himself.
Listen, I wanted to give a little taste. I didn't want you to blurt out, oh, he's the killer.
Well, we can't blurt that out because we don't know, because it's an unsolved case, and we can't accuse anybody definitively.
But there's a lot of things that point in his direction.
I think it was him.
You know, it feels a lot like Caleb Deal's case, where we just can't say that that man killed Caleb Deal.
Yeah,
But that man probably killed Caleb Deal.
Yes.
It does seem like the most likely scenario.
There's just too much that points in his direction.
The stuff that you said
Outside
did
looking
not...
in.
Yeah, the stuff you said did not point in his direction was they haven't found enough to charge him. I mean...
Do y'all think it's possible that Lampo was the woman she was talking to in the mall?
I think it's possible that she had nothing to do with it.
That was an interesting way to answer my question.
I don't think it was her in the mall.
It's weird the amount of coincidence that exists between Onuma and Lampo and the connection to Kristen. Now, I think you can obviously know people. Like, we know it's a small world. Even in big cities, you find connections to connections to connections. It just feels too perfectly worked out. But then I wonder if I'm also borrowing suspicion from man's experience, right? What he's written, what he's posted, what he's investigated. Again, a civilian investigator tied to the case for nearly over 28 years.
I would need to know more if Lampo ever played any role in any of his other interactions where he was coercing or pressuring women to engage in sexual acts with him. Was she a part of that, or was she not a part of that? Because I think for me, it would give me insight as into whether or not I think that she would have had anything to do with being at the Galleria and talking to Kristen. Because if she wasn't a part of any of these other acts, it's unlikely that she would have been not just a part of this, but so much an accomplice that she is going in, seeking this girl out, engaging her in conversation, and convincing her to leave with her and potentially her partner. It's a big leap from not being involved in those other instances to being involved in this one, but we don't know if she was involved in the other instances. I think that the women would have said, but we don't know.
Yeah. I want to be really clear and upfront. There is no evidence to suggest that Lampo ever was a part of any of Onuma's alleged activities.
Right. So I think that she wanted to get to this beach location. She made it pretty far. I mean, right? They traced her bus to what was the place that they picked up her scent again?
Right,
to the
near
bluffs.
the ocean.
And then gone, which could be in a car, could be, I don't know, UFO zapped her up, could be, there's no explanation really for her scent to just stop other than she got into some sort of vehicle that took her from that spot, which would then terminate her smell there.
Mm-hmm. So that's theory 1. Now, theory 2, some people cling to the idea that maybe the housemates had something to do with her death. That's why they didn't report things for nearly a week. But by and large, this theory has been disproven. Not only were they originally cleared quickly in 1997, but the fact that 5 housemates, all involved with this one incident, could stay quiet for 28 years is just incredibly unlikely. And there is no verification of those chemically reported findings by VAS. There's just no independent review or recreation available. So there is no way that theory really stands for me. A simpler theory that a lot of people give to is that Kristen went to the ocean and the ocean took her. The Bloodhound Trail ended at Sutro Heights Park near the Cliff House. on the bluff above the Sutro Baths ruins, and the Pacific Ocean is immediately downhill from there. Baker Beach, the location of the party she had told coworkers she was considering, is notorious for rough surf and strong undertow. Land's End, the location she had asked her coworker for directions to, sits at the foot of cliffs where over the years a substantial number of people have fallen, jumped, or been swept away. The coastline is also subject to a specific oceanographic phenomenon called a sneaker wave, which is a disproportionately large surge of water that arrives without warning during otherwise calm condition, sweeping people off of rocks, beaches, and the shoreline edges around both Land's End and Ocean Beach on a recurring basis. Sneaker waves were, by the Modafferi's family's own account, one of the theories that Oakland police presented to them as a plausible accidental death scenario in the early years of the investigation.
How many of these people who have jumped or been swept away or whatever are their bodies never recovered?
Right.
How many other people in the area are missing and there is no body and it's been in the water? It never washes up on any shore.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly what's reported by ABC 7, is that most of the people who do fall in and die on that coastline wash up within weeks during the summer months. They don't stay hidden forever. They don't just drift off. So they do typically drift back ashore. The family is also heavily against this notion of an accidental death. Theory 4, we've already kind of talked about Robert Durst, but again, there's not strong evidence that he was in that area at the time. As a matter of fact, there's strong evidence against it. And for most people, the blonde as Durst theory is just too far of a stretch. And then lastly, a stranger encounter that we cannot construct. The 5th theory is the one nobody cares to land on because it's the most cognitively unsatisfying, and it's the one that there's bare evidence. If you bracket Onuma's call and the 2017 vast findings, both of which are evidentiarily contested, most simply fits. Kristen had been in San Francisco for 23 days. She had met a substantial number of new people and jobs and classes in transit and the rooming house in the city. She was 18, alone, friendly, and apparently open to meeting strangers, as evidenced by that personal ad in her trash can. The blonde woman at the Galleria could have literally been anyone. The encounter could have been started consensually and ended otherwise. The case file might never have produced a suspect because the suspect was, statistically, and in the worst sense, simply someone Kristen happened to meet. When we talk about the evidence for, we have that real lack of forensic evidence between Kristen and Onuma, the fundamentally open texture of the first 3 weeks in the city, and the blonde companion who was never identified. But there is the statistic of victim-offender relationships in cases of violence against women, which makes the pure stranger version statistically the least likely of the 5 theories. I feel like I was maybe a little extravagant and extra when I said that. I do think it still bears out, though. The specific behavior of John Onuma in the weeks and years after, which a pure stranger model has trouble explaining, and the 2017 vast Dosty chemical findings at the porch step areas by 274, if they had evidentiary weight, it makes it harder to explain a pure stranger working against her. The Modafferi family has not stopped looking for Kristen. And in the years after her vanishment, Bob and Debbie flew to San Francisco repeatedly, by Bob's own account, dozens of times over the years. They distributed prayer cards, they posted billboards on the freeways of the Bay Area, they placed Kristen's photograph on NASCAR race cars to circulate her image to a national audience. Multiple appearances on America's Most Wanted, Unsolved Mysteries, ABC's primetime episode In the Shadow of Lacey Peterson, Court TV's Haunted Evidence, Lifetime's Missing. They worked with Joan Petruski and the Kristen Foundation, which formally incorporated as a 501c, raised over $200,000 to assist families of missing endangered adults, and put up a $50,000 reward, and ultimately lobbied Congress until Kristen's act became public law. Her oldest sister, Allison, who had sung an acapology alongside her, is a yoga teacher and wellness entrepreneur. in North Carolina, and Lauren still lives in Charlotte. Bob moved to Florida sometime after 2015 and died in 2022. His daughter Kristen, for whom he has spent 25 years of his life searching, has never been found. Pat Mahaney retired from the Oakland Police Department sometime after 2017, having spent most of his career carrying Kristen's case. When he was asked to speak at ABC 7's 20th anniversary coverage, he said, "There must have been some stones unturned, otherwise we would have it solved by now." And he also shared, "At times it keeps me up at night." His personal best guess about what happened to Kristen, given in a 2025 interview, is that she was disposed of off a bridge in Marin County, the area John Onuma described in his July 10th false tip. The case now belongs to Officer Roger Haley, which Haley showed ABC in 2017 as being that 3-foot wide drawer of folders. Allison has said of her sister, "If she hadn't passed on, then our imagination of what could be happening to her is horrific. We know without a doubt that if she was able to reach us, she would reach us." Her youngest sister, Megan, has said, "There's no process for grieving in this way, because it's not like she was here yesterday, and then she's gone, so we have a funeral. We haven't had her for 20 years. Lauren has said, "It's hard to believe 20 years has gone by. It was just as painful when I was 15 as it is today." Furthermore, Kristen's act was passed as Kristen's law, and ultimately, when Kristen disappeared in June of 1997, she was 18 years old, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which is the federally chartered nonprofit that operates the National Clearinghouse for Missing Children's Cases, did not take cases of adults. Kristen was 18 by 22 days at the time of her going missing. The NCMEC could not help her family search for her by its charter, and the Modafferi family, working with Charlotte neighbor Joan Petruski, who would go on to found that Kristen Foundation, began a lobbying campaign with their North Carolina congressional delegation to create a federal framework for missing adult cases. And on August 5th, 1999, Representative Sue Myrick, Republican of North Carolina's 9th Congressional District, which includes Charlotte, introduced H.R. 2780 in the House of Representatives. The Senate companion bill was sponsored by Senator John Edwards, Democrat of North Carolina, who was at that point serving his first term. The bill authorized the Attorney General to make grants to public agencies and nonprofit organizations for programs to assist law enforcement and families in locating missing adults, to maintain a national interconnected database of missing adult cases, and to maintain a national clearinghouse. The authorized funding was $1 million per year for 4 years, 2001 through 2004, totaling $4 million in authorization. Now, this was turned into law. I'm not sure exactly what's happened with Kristen's law since then, but I do know that during the first Bush presidency, H.W. Bush presidency, that funding was reduced down to around $120,000 a year. If you have any information about the disappearance of Kristen Deborah Modafferi, 18 years old, last seen at the Crocker Galleria in San Francisco on June 23, 1997, the contacts are these. The Oakland Police Department's Missing Persons Unit can be reached at 510-238-3352 or at 510-238-3370. The FBI's San Francisco field office can be reached at 415-553-7400. Information can also be submitted through the Find Kristen archive at findkristen.com. And that's all I've got.
Miranda, thoughts?
I really wish I knew what happened to Kristen. I hate not knowing. And for her family, too. I don't know. Being a mom and having a daughter who's 17 and, having your child go off just turning 18 and going missing and being a parent not knowing, I can't even begin to fathom that for the parents and let alone the siblings, because that's your sibling, and having brothers and whatnot. I feel more bad for the family that they don't know. I think that's worse than knowing. But
yeah, it seems like, she had only just turned 18, right? So she's still a child to them. It's kind of like what you were just saying. they seem frustrated because they weren't able to get the, what is it, NMEC, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Involved in searching for her because she was technically 18, but to her family she was still just a kid. And you kind of feel that throughout, like, why are the people that she's living with not calling her parents when she didn't come home? And it's like, on paper, she's an adult. She may not be an adult to you, but on paper, she is an adult. And adults have the right to not sleep at home for a few nights if they want. Adults have the right to come and go without somebody tracking them and calling their parents. And we know that that's not what happened here, but what he said. But it does happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things that I think about is, by all accounts, Kristen was an incredibly intelligent young woman, very smart, very capable, had proven herself academically, and had graduated from school a year early because she skipped a grade. And I think about the level of naivete that kind of comes with being so intelligent, so academically gifted and strong, is that you develop blind spots that don't necessarily make a lot of sense to your brain. And so sometimes you develop a sense of confidence or understanding of the world that's flawed. And this is a girl who had spent, a year in the university setting, but in North Carolina, and with her sister in the same a cappella group and her family nearby. And I mean, it's incredibly sad. It's incredibly sad that she is presumably dead and was likely murdered and never found. And I just wonder what was running through her head that day. What was she doing? Where was she going? How was she living? And did someone take advantage of her? Did someone approach her in a way that felt kind, that she wasn't privy to ulterior motives? And it takes me back to that question that I posed at the beginning of part 1 to you both, which was, as young women, how did you navigate the situation where, and I hate to just make the assumption that her probable assailant was male, but I think that makes the most sense, and navigating those situations. Because was she in a position where she found something to be really flattering? Was she in a position where she didn't understand that what was being asked of her might be different than what was expected from her?
What I agree to, I think when you're younger, you're, like you said, naive to the fact of how, and I don't want to say man, but how men operate, especially being a woman. I think that's why I tell my daughter all the time too, is be careful, watch your surroundings. You never know. Don't put your drink down. Don't leave it unattended. It's just, you never really know who is out there and who is genuinely a good person or somebody who's going to take you home and, hurt you. Being younger, I don't think I looked at things that way. I think I was just like, let's go to work, do our thing. But now I think being a mom and having my daughter, I want to be sure she understands that you can't always trust people. You can't always give them the benefit of the doubt. If you feel like something's off, chances are something is not quite right. So I can understand being naive in the situation.
Yeah. Well, and you were saying, don't put your drink down, don't do this, don't do that, be aware of your surroundings. And who's to say that she didn't go to the ATM and that somebody didn't see her taking money out? We don't know the Wells Fargo location that she pulled the money from, but you don't know who's watching you set your drink down and leaving it unattended, or where you're not focused on it. You don't know who's watching you from across the street pull money out of the ATM and then go to the bus stop, get on a bus, and take the bus to wherever. It's so easy to follow somebody using public transportation that way. Just go get on the same bus as them, and then you get off at the same stop as them, and we just don't know. We don't know.
Mm-mm.
Was there a crime?
Mm-mm.
Yes. What was his name? Onika. He committed crimes. He wasn't convicted of any of them, I don't think. Okay, well. Onuma.
Mm-hmm.
Onuma committed crimes, but he was not actually convicted of them, I don't think. Ugh. I wish that this story was told more, so I'm glad that you brought it for us to discuss, because it just feels like this weird discrepancy in how much the parents seem to be pushing for this to be resolved, but the media is not picking up this story. Maybe with the 30-year anniversary being next year, I don't know, but it feels like a miscarriage of justice in and of its own right. Like, I don't necessarily always understand what cases are media worthy and which ones are not.
I'm really glad that I don't think police departments wait as long to start missing persons investigations as they did.
Maybe.
I'm glad that I do think they move more with a swiftness than before, but it's all incredibly frustrating. And like you said, this case really, I had never heard of this case. I didn't know anything about it until I stumbled upon it looking at, spoiler alert, intentionally looking for unsolved cases. And I found this one and thought,
I'm going to take that browser off your goddamn computer.
Yeah.
Every time you try to look up unsolved, I'm going to make sure it says denied. But I'm sure there's a lot of unsolved cases that don't get told. So I'm glad that you shared this one because I wasn't familiar with that.
So much harder to make it a true crime comedy podcast with these cases. There's not really crime necessarily, and we can't make it light.
right.
So we just listen to you tell a sad unsolved story.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I'm at a loss because hopefully people have hung in there with us and somebody knows something, and then we can do an update and things are resolved and then we can feel better.
Yeah.
Miranda, it's been lovely having you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope
How
I
do
can
you
come back and do it again. This has been quite the process.
We put you through a long one. My bad.
It's okay. Well, the fact that you don't have the fucking AC on.
It's on at
And
72.
I'm sweating. Okay, it needs to be about 68 or 69 when I come to visit, okay?
So much like Mom.
Menopause and hot flashes just don't go very well for me in my midlife crises at the moment, so...
When we recorded at my house, I always bumped that shit down so it would be freezing in the house so that when I turned the AC off, it would have a long way to rise. But I think he was a bit more focused on getting the audio set up. Just
I know, we've got pillows everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They're sharing a microphone and it picks up everything. So that's why the AC has to be turned off, because they don't have the type of microphone that would filter that sound out. This has been an adventure all the way around. It's been a journey to get from part one to the end, and also to figure out how to have a third person in our recording. But it has been entertaining to have another person to kind of bounce off, and I'm glad that you were able to come join us.
I'm so happy, and like I said, hopefully I can come back and do it again, preferably with a case that has been solved.
Yeah,
No,
hopefully Cameron will tell the story that time.
Just
I'll get you a shorty and it'll be solved.
A short solved case. Really, there were too many factors today. Yesterday I should have just scratched it. I should have said, let me pull out a short one.
It's fine.
But you didn't realize it until like
I
late.
really didn't. It was like way late when I realized how long it had ended up becoming, so.
And you know, to your credit, you took out the bit about the psychic that you said you probably would take out, so.
Wait, there was a psychic?
There was a psychic involved, and those details haven't really been released either. It's like, we know there was a psychic. She said that something would come to be, but I don't.
It sounds like there's a lot that's to this case that just has not come to surface. That
almost
is what it sounds like.
And almost like there are people out there who recognize this family's desperation
and take advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if advantage to me carries this like malicious intent almost. And I think that sometimes these people do think that they are going to be able to help. I think that people who think that they've discovered something that's going to find DNA evidence 18 years after the fact in the drain next door, and people who think that they're going to come in and, I think that there are people who do genuinely have like abilities to help solve things or resolve things. I don't think that that's the majority. I think a lot of people purport to do that, but are not always as credible as they believe themselves to be.
Right.
So that's just kind of, it feels like the psychic is the reason that they felt like 2015 was going to be the year that something came about. It wasn't, I'm having a vision, but that's what it feels like.
Your psychic's coming out.
I'm sensing that there is a connectedness between the psychic and the belief that this would be resolved in 2015, or there would at least be some questions answered at that point.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think as a parent, you probably hold on to anything and everything that comes your way.
Any sliver of hope.
Yeah.
Just to know.
Well, again, sister, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for sitting through the case. And besties, if you've made it all the way to the end, congratulations. This has been a real long edge session for you, and I apologize, but I hope it was worth it.
To the editing chamber.
And how do we finish this off? And that's all
Like, subscribe.
Wait.
All that good jazz.
And that's all we've got for this episode.
Thank you for listening.
Until the next crime.
If you enjoyed listening and want to hear more, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and leave a review.
The link to join our supportive bestie tier on Patreon for only $2 a month is listed in the show notes.
Also, make sure you're following us at End of Crime Pod on Instagram.
Our email address is endofcrimepod@gmail.com, so feel free to reach out with questions or episode suggestions.